Are going through a difficult patch, and they could become even more strained, with eminent Australian lawyers demanding Indonesian authorities investigate allegations of a massacre 15 years ago in West Papua. A former New South Wales Attorney-General and a Director of Public Prosecutions are leading the charge. They claim there's evidence that more than 100 civilians were killed, raped or tortured, and that there should be a crimes against humanity prosecution. Matt Peacock reports.
On the picturesque Biak Island in Indonesia's West Papua, 15 years ago, families of the mainly Christian population held a rare protest. 17 and still at school, Yuda Korwa joined it.
My friends told me that they're raising the Morning Star, West Papua Morning Star, and then say, oh, okay, come on then, we go and see what's happening there.
When the Dutch left here in 1961, they promised the indigenous landowners self-determination. The Morning Star flag became their symbol of independence. But Indonesia soon asserted control and the flag was effectively banned. Nearly 4 decades later, Yuda Korwa was told by his elders it was time to take a stand.
You have to fight with your own freedom. Because you're not Indonesian, you is West Papua.
Over the course of that day, a few dozen people turned into hundreds, if not thousands, under the flagpole, and people started camping out under it. They became determined to guard this flag.
Okay. Women, children, old people, young boy, little girl, the pregnant woman, everyone is just come.
For 4 days, the flag flew as protesters sang Christian hymns. Then, at dawn, July 6, the Indonesian Army, Navy and Police attacked in a hail of bullets.
I saw so many people have been killed with the military. I saw the little boy they killed, and the old people, the pregnant woman, and then little girl.
Basically, as everyone was singing, the troops started shooting into the crowd, and in those initial moments, people were mowed down, people started falling, others started running.
Anthropologist Eben Kirksey was a young American undergraduate then passing through Biak.
The people who survived were herded down to the harbor, and as they were being prepared to be put on these ships, they could see back that the dead and the dying from that initial assault were being loaded into trucks.
One of the army, he hit me with the gun, so my face full with the blood. So because I'm really scared, so I just pretending like making myself have to die. So I have to turn off on my face to the floor. But I'm still here that the people still yelling, help me, help me.
His skull cracked and stabbed, Yuda Korwa was one of the few to escape alive. He limped away and hid for 2 days in a road culvert. But there was worse to follow.
After they were forced onto the boats, one woman who survived that, who jumped off when the boat was near shore, people were being raped and tortured from the very moment they got on board. This is not something that a few rogue officers planned. This is something that the highest levels of the Indonesian military were involved in planning.
It's estimated more than 150 bodies were dumped at sea. Indonesia has never admitted the massacre, claiming only 1 person was killed and blaming the bodies that washed ashore on a subsequent tsunami. The action was strongly supported by the then head of Indonesia's military, General Wiranto.
Wiranto, on the day after the attack, on July 7th, he's saying in the media that these people were traitors. He's saying that if they were raising a flag, that was a crime enough to justify what was done to them. So Wiranto clearly knew about the attack, and the police and military were also involved in the cover-up.
The evidence that is about to be given by the next witness is evidence that may be confronting and distressing to many people.
Earlier this year at Sydney University, a citizens' tribunal took evidence of what really happened at Biak 15 years ago.
Ini sila kata ini. Kalau mereka pakai potong, kami punya kemauan semua. your vaginas from above and below and from the left and to the right.
Testifying here for the first time, Tineke Rumakabu saw her friend beheaded. She herself was tortured horribly.
She was burnt, she was genitally mutilated and had injuries on other parts of her body. She was raped. She was treated in the most degrading and vicious fashion by Indonesian police.
The former New South Wales Crown Prosecutor, Nicholas Cowdery, was the counsel assisting the Citizens Tribunal.
Well, I've spent many, many years in practice in the criminal law, so I'm used to reading and hearing pretty gruesome stories of what people can do to other people. But when I read the witness accounts, the first-hand accounts and the reports that were made of this very soon after the event, while memories were still very fresh, it struck me as one of the worst examples of the massacre of civilians that I'd come across.
The specific mutilation of the females was a conscious, deliberate terror policy. It is hard to believe that human beings could do what these troops did.
A few months after these events, Indonesia launched a military crackdown in East Timor, one that ultimately failed, despite similar proven atrocities against unarmed civilians. But while world attention focused on East Timor, the Biak attack was never investigated. The Citizens Tribunals now called on Indonesia to do just that.
We want those that are responsible to be brought to justice. We want an investigation, we want criminal prosecutions, and we want people to pay a penalty for what they did.
There are investigations that can now be conducted by an independent judicial body of some kind in Indonesia. There is the opportunity for perhaps some kind of special prosecutor to conduct investigations and proceedings in Indonesia. There is the opportunity for the Indonesians to provide compensation to the families who suffered loss or injury.
Indonesia has refused to comment on the Citizens Tribunal, which has also called on Australia to take action.
The Australian government has a duty to these people that died and their families who still live on to expose what happened, to stop it happening again.
Yuda Korwa, who with his nephew survived a perilous escape to Australia on this wooden boat 7 years ago, has been granted political asylum. Now living in Canberra, he hopes his new country will support his people.
The Australian government, they have to stand up and then they have to investigate again what happened since 6th of July 1998, 15 years ago.
Matt Peacock with that report.